go lone wolf, that's what I call it, going lone wolf. When you go lone wolf, then you don't stand a chance out there on your own.
Welcome back to another episode of Daddy Issues. Our guest today is going to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his story.
Well, hello there. Thanks for having me, Dan. My name is Mark Schneider. I have quite an interesting story, actually. I was born and raised in Wyoming. I was, last name Schneider, raised in a German household, right? I was raised in a very, very alcoholic and abusive home. My mom and I were very, very abused, but my brother and sister didn't really catch much of it. I never understood why until, we'll get there later, but I'll get to more details. But yeah, when I was 28, I found out that he wasn't my real father, even though I had his last name.
Wow.
So, my mom was 17 when she had me, 16 when she got pregnant with me. And then evidently he said, when they met up, he said, well, I'll take care of you. And he was 25 at the time, so he married a 17-year-old girl and we all happened from there, right? But just to go back a little bit, like I said, a very, very abusive alcoholic family, upbringing. My mom is like, she's one of my favorite people in the world to this day. I gave her away to a great man in 2011. She's happily married, living up in Washington State now, and I love her where she is and everything that she's doing. But we had quite, between physical, mental, all that stuff. I broke out of it. Wrestling as I was growing up was my escape. So I used that to, those were my dads, if you will, the coaches.
Yeah.
So I had better examples of men in my life to follow than that. And I always looked to them and the way they handled their families and the way their kids looked up to them and everything. And I said, I want that. So a month before I turned 20 years old, I actually became a Christian. Was not raised in a Christian home whatsoever. I was always searching for something, but never quite understood, what that was. And I was, that hole, that darkness, like when you feel like you're fatherless, when you just don't, you never heard I love you in your life, you like at all. It's you're seeking for something. But at the same time, I'd met my first wife and we got pregnant on our first date with my son, who will be 32 this year. I'm 52 now. So I've been going through this for quite a while.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp.com. If you're listening to these podcasts, then clearly you're going through, a hard time. And I used to think therapy was, kind of a joke. It wasn't really for me until I actually went and, realized it's very beneficial. Even doing these podcasts, talking about our issues and, the things that men aren't really supposed to do, helps out tremendously. So go check out BetterHelp.com, and if you use the code Daddy Issues Podcast, you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy. So that's BetterHelp.com/Daddy Issues Podcast.
But we had our son. 9 months later, we got married in June. Had our son in November. And just walking through life, I started leading men's groups, raising kids. We ended up having 5 more children, all girls. One of them beat us to heaven. She only lived 45 minutes, and that was in 2003. So she'd be 21 this year.
So that was also with your first wife.
We were married 17 years.
17 years, and then when you guys met from 9 months, you guys got married within 9 months of knowing each other?
And got married and had a child within 9 months of knowing each other.
Gotcha.
And just stuck it out, right? We're men. We commit to things. We devote to things. We do that. I didn't want the divorce. But that was not the way everything went out. I ended up going through the divorce, and I was awarded full custody of all 5 children. And at the time, they were aged 16 to 4.
How did that happen?
It was really,
That's
it
pretty
was,
rare.
it was rare. It is rare, and it was rough. Let's just say that there were a lot of psychological evaluations done, and some other things that it was not a great marriage. I went from a abusive and mentally abusive father to the same in a wife, basically, is what it boiled down to. But the youngest daughter still lives with me now. She's 19. She's almost 20. She was 4 when, I took over parenting as a dad on my own.
Yeah.
So, and that was in 2009. And it's been a long, long haul, to say the least. But, it's many years of therapy, many years of counseling, getting through, always having guys around. I lead a men's group now. I've been leading a men's group for the last 8 years. We have so many things, men, we tend to isolate ourselves, right? And, if it hadn't been for good men in my life, I would not have gotten through this. It was 100% necessary to have those men in my life that I could lean on, that I could call when I needed them, and things like that. So that's, like I said, I'd get to it. So going back to becoming a Christian when I was 20, my counseling started when I was 28. And that's going through that. I was literally on my knees praying in my basement it was August of 2000. And I just felt this anger welling up inside of me. I was like, God, I don't want to be like my father. And I literally heard this voice right behind my right ear in my head. It said, he's not your father. What? But I knew that, like they say, when you hear the voice of God, you know it. The next day I called my mom and I said, Mom, is there any chance Les isn't my real dad? It's like, I'm just calling my mom out on okay, what's up here? And she's like, oh, no. And my spirit cringed, my gut cringed. I was like, my mom just lied to me. Like, my mother just lied to me. And
to even question that, though, to even think that is so wow.
I know. I called my mom out on being what, right? So anyway, the next 2 weeks she spent, she called me, left me messages, call me, need to talk to you. And I was mad.
Yeah.
Cause I knew that voice in my head, and I knew what I'd heard, and I knew, when you know the circumstances, when you're in that and you're living it, you're like, I know what this was. So 2 weeks later, my grandfather, her dad, who was my absolute favorite person in the world until he passed away, he's a Marine. He was just a great guy. He called me. He says, you need to talk to your mom. I said, about what? He says, we just do. He said, I said, I'm mad at her, Grandpa. He says, so evidently everybody been talking in the background, right? And he says, well, you just need to talk to her. And I said, it's about my dad, isn't it? He says, what about it? I said, Les isn't my real father. He says, how'd you know? I said, God told me, Grandpa.
Jesus. Wow.
Yep, literally.
Right.
Yeah, right. So it was. So that day, I called the man that abused us. Told him, I'm not a perfect. I'm one of the most abrasive Christians you'll ever meet in your life. By the way, just saying. I call everything out. I'm edgy. I do that stuff, but I'm not your typical Bible thumper. But so when I called him up that day, I was I'll give you an example of where this came from. After I won my first state title wrestling, I came home from work on Friday night, and he had a bottle of mezcal sitting out, and we drank that bottle shot for shot, and I ate the worm that night. He told me that night, he says, I can't wait till you turn 21 and I can take you to a bar and start a fight and have you finish it. He was literally raised me to be a pit bull.
Yeah.
On a chain.
And he was treating you different than your other 2 siblings, obviously because you weren't his or whatever.
Right. 100%. So that day when I found out, I called him when he got off work, I was like, well, I know the truth. She says, about what? I said, she says, you do, huh? Who told you? I said, Grandpa. Oh my goodness. Like abuse. Welled up. And and he says, well, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't change anything. I said, as far as I'm concerned, it changes everything. I said, you have nothing over me anymore. I said, you'll be allowed around me and my family, but if you ever raise your hand or your voice to me or a member of my family again, I'm going to tear your fucking head off.
Yeah.
That's the way you treated me, and that's the way I will treat you. And that was one of the last conversations he and I ever had. He just passed away in February.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell, if you will. Like it's been up and down and all around, and it's like so hard to like keep track of sometimes, right? But I was married again. We were together for 7 years. We were married 3.5. Divorced in 2016. I've really not had a significant relationship since then. I'm just like doing things on my own. I got my daughter, my youngest graduated. We'll see where things go from there. As far as, future relationships or dating or anything like that. But yeah, like there are so many other nuances in the story that, I can share with you, but yeah, feel free to ask any questions you might have.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, do your kids have a relationship with their mom now, even though you have
They
full
do.
custody? Okay,
They do.
yeah.
Yeah. I never restricted that.
Yeah.
Like when they were old enough and they wanted to have a relationship, I never told them they couldn't.
Yeah.
But, at the time they needed a good hard reset. They needed some stability in their life. They needed, and evidently the court saw that too. I was shocked.
Yeah.
Absolutely shocked.
I mean, it's good and bad at the same time, because it's like, you want them to be in a safe environment and whatever, but it's also like, damn, how am I going to do this? Because you said you had 5 kids, so it's like,
Mhm.
how do you take care of 5 kids solo? You definitely need a support system, or people around you
Oh,
to help out.
it, yeah. I didn't have any family in town, anything.
Yeah.
So I leaned on a lot of my friends at church and stuff like that. But I figured it out.
Yeah.
You just do. That's what I
Right.
didn't
You
have a
have to.
choice.
Right. Exactly.
I didn't have a choice. I had 5 kids looking at me. Now I have 5 grandkids, and it's awesome to get to that stage.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about the dad's podcast, right? And like when you make it to grandpa, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So it's worth it.
Yeah, and that's great that you're giving back now too to other young men or young dads, because that's one thing that I didn't realize when I joined the Facebook group for dads. I didn't realize how many men were going through something like this. Again, because being a man, you kind of keep it bottled up. You're raised to keep your feelings inside and
Right.
be a man, and you don't realize how many dads are going through this and struggling. I couldn't believe how many dads are in that group and doing this, hearing the stories that some of them go through. I'm just like, I thought my situation was bad, and then I'm listening to theirs, and I'm like, oh my god. So
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
no, absolutely. And I'll put it out there for anybody. Like, feel free to reach out to me. Like, I'm here to help support men going through anything they want, and anything they're going through, and like to give advice on, how to handle things. And like, man, like the worst thing we can do is like isolate as men. And I'll give you an example. Like, I'm sitting in my patio right now. I'm looking at my neighbor's credenza out back, or their whatever, not credenza, but their patio. And he committed suicide a month and a half ago.
oh no, because he was going through a divorce and stuff, or what?
He'd gone through a divorce,
Man,
and his kids were 25 and 23 now, and his ex-wife had pretty well alienated him.
yep,
I talked to his current wife just 2 weeks ago, and finally to able to see what was going on. And like literally this man next door to me took his life in his garage
man,
because he just couldn't take it anymore.
right? It's
And
it's wild how far somebody can push you.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know I needed to reach out. I didn't know that he was hurting. And I didn't make myself available to let him know he could reach out. And this is my very next door neighbor.
Yeah, but at the same time, you got to look at it as like he's doing what men were raised to do, and he's keeping it bottled up inside. So you would have no clue. Yeah.
Right. So that's why I'm like, we gotta make this more known. We gotta let people know that they are not alone. We gotta let guys know they're not alone. You know, and I read so much on like Reddit and like so many posts and stuff like that of guys going through it and giving up on dating, giving up on life, giving up on women. Like I understand it. Yeah. I know. I've been there, and it's horrible to have to go through. And we just need to understand that we really, really aren't alone.
Hey guys, real quick, if you can jump over to patreon.com/daddyissuesofthetruth, help support what we're doing, help support the channel, just so we can get as many dads as we can on the podcast and share their stories, and hopefully it's helping you guys out. That would be huge, man. And I definitely need your support, could use your support, and I hope that what we're doing is helpful to you. So if you guys could help out, patreon.com/daddyissuesofthetruth, and greatly appreciated, man. Thank you guys. All right, back to the episode.
When we go lone wolf, that's what I call it, going lone wolf. When you go lone wolf, then you don't stand a chance out there on your own.
Yeah.
You have to have your community. You have to have your network.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have somebody, you know, even if it's that Facebook group where you can reach out to dads and, you know, ask questions. It's like you have to have some sort of support. I got lucky where, you know, not only have my friends, but I have my wife now who really helped me. We were dating back then, but she really helped me get through it and, like, understood what I was going through and helped me, because I was ready to give up, not end my life, but I was like, dang, I'll see my kids when they're 18, and you know, I just can't keep doing this anymore. And right. And she really was just like, no, you need to fight this out. And
well, that's the way it was for the first few months until we got to the temporary orders.
Yeah.
Like I would literally, I'd get up, get dressed for work, crawl back in bed. I was sleeping on a 1-inch futon, pull the covers over my head and just like cry.
Yeah.
Like I was hurting so bad. I missed my kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And, at the end of the day, I mean, that's what it comes down to, is like the kids, like, you know, we're us as adults, like it hurts us, but we understand what's going on. These kids kind of don't understand what's going on depending on their age, and it's going to mess with them the rest of their lives. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah. So that's my story in a nutshell. I'm glad to answer any questions anybody else ever has, but yeah, and if you want to have me on to talk some more or whatever, like I'm happy to.
Yeah, where can somebody reach out and find you if they want to talk?
Mark Schneider on Facebook, or on Instagram, it's WYO Transplant. And that's the best way to those messengers are the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
No, absolutely. And thanks for giving me the opportunity. I just feel it's important for men to know that they're not alone, and do not isolate. Let's go, guys. We got this. Me down. You can hold me down. You can hold me down. You can hold me down.